Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this new webinar session hosted by the British Chamber of Commerce for Morocco. Allow me first to wish you all a peaceful and blessed Ramadan. In our fifth webinar of 2022, we will be addressing the topic of agribusiness opportunities between Morocco and the UK. In fact, agriculture is one of the main drivers of the Morocco-UK post-Brexit cooperation. To take but one example, food exports from Morocco to the UK have increased by almost 40% since January 2021. While Morocco fresh fruits and vegetables are nothing new to the fresh produce business in the UK, where you can already find citrus, strawberries, tomatoes, watermelon, and more on the supermarket shelves, over the last 10 years, Morocco has significantly modernized its agriculture and food industry through the Green Morocco programme. Replaced since February 2020 with a new plan called Generation Green. On top of that, a new sea route linking Tanger to Poole will allow the reduction of transport times from 6 to 3 days, guaranteeing the freshness of products and their availability on the shelves of the British market. Aware of the strategic importance of agriculture in Morocco, but also of the interest British investors have in the food and agricultural business, the BritCham is hosting this webinar that will bring thoughts of diverse experts on the following questions: import-export potential regulation, infrastructure, doing business climate in Morocco, public-private partnerships, and incentives to agriculture in Morocco. With that being said, I'm pleased to welcome this brilliant panel of speakers who will run us through the different aspects of the UK-Morocco agribusiness potential. Mr. Chris Woodward, UK Consul General and DIT Morocco Director, who has kindly accepted to moderate this discussion. Thank you, Mr. Woodward, and we're also looking forward to hear some of your thoughts on the bilateral partnership and the possible matches between the two agricultural markets. I'd also like to welcome Mrs. Hajar Shmanti Houari, who is in charge of investment promotion at the Agency for Agricultural Development. With you, Mrs. Houari, we'd like to know more about the characteristics of the Moroccan agricultural market and what makes it attractive to both national and foreign investments. And finally, I'm happy to welcome Mr. Hamid Badi, who's Head of Division at the Ministry of Trade and Investment, and he'll introduce us to the agribusiness market in Morocco, its strengths and challenges. Thank you, Mr. Badi. Before yielding back to Chris to moderate the rest of this session, I'd like to particularly thank our partners for this event: OCP, Spirit Aerosystems, BMC Bank of Africa, Cosumar, Aqua Group, Kutubia, British International School of Casablanca, and H&A Investments. Thank you all, and wishing you a very fruitful webinar. Thank you.
Good morning all, and Ramadan Mubarak. Welcome to this morning's webinar to discuss Morocco-UK agribusiness trade and investment opportunities. And a huge thank you to BritCham and all partners for hosting this webinar and for arranging this excellent panel this morning. As Stephen mentioned, I'm Chris Woodward. I'm the UK Department for International Trade Country Director and Her Majesty's Consul General in Morocco. And as Stephen has outlined, I'm joined by Mr. Hamid Badi and Ms. Hajar Shmanti Houari to speak about agribusiness trade and investment opportunities this morning. Before we launch in, I've been asked just to comment briefly on the state of play of UK-Morocco trade in general and where we are at this moment in time. And I think where we find ourselves right now is in a moment of real momentum, partly driven on by the renewed UK-Morocco Association Agreement, the first agreement the UK signed as part of the rollover of EU agreements on our exit from the EU. We hosted the inaugural Association Council, the Trade Ministerial, in December of 2021, bringing ministers together from both sides in London to discuss our priorities for the years ahead. And we also established a trade subcommittee, which will be hosted later this year to continue to drive forward our bilateral trade agenda. Total trade in goods and services, combining exports plus imports, between the UK and Morocco was £1.8 billion in the 4 quarters to the end of Q3 2021, which is an increase of 7.2%, or £124 million from the same 4 quarters to the end of Q3 2020, a clear sign of the growing relationship. In terms of the UK's Department for International Trade in Morocco, we have the overall responsibility for UK government of advancing and growing the commercial relationship between the two kingdoms. The team here works across trade policy and trade promotion objectives, and we also recently have a dedicated UK export finance lead in the country. On trade policy, we have 2 key objectives. Firstly, working with the Moroccan government to review and improve the existing trade agreement between the two kingdoms and seeking to find ways to make it work better for companies on both sides. And secondly, we're working with companies to identify market access barriers that are preventing them doing business at the border or behind the border in each respective kingdom. And we're again working with the Moroccan government to resolve these market access barriers. In terms of trade promotion, the Department of International Trade is working on priority sectors to support imports, exports, and investments between the two kingdoms. For the UK, that's particularly energy, financial and professional services, health, education, mining, and textiles. But of course, today we are focusing on agriculture and agribusiness, which is another key sector. Why are we looking at agribusiness? As Stephen's outlined, the top goods imported to the UK from Morocco in 2020 were vegetables and fruit. £312.6 million, or 34.7% of all goods imported from Morocco. From the UK to Morocco, cereal was in the top 5 of goods exported, £23.3 million. Since the UK left the EU, agri-food exports from Morocco to the UK have increased by almost 40%. For tomatoes and citrus specifically, that's more than 80%, and watermelon and cucumbers have also shown strong growth. Currently within the UK, 25% of tomatoes, 20% of soft fruit, and 60% of all sardines eaten come from Morocco. For DIP, agriculture is a real growth sector for what we've seen, particularly looking at Moroccan exports into the UK. There are key opportunities in elements beyond fruit and vegetables, cereal exports, processing and packaging, and green and sustainable agricultural practices. We want to find the areas where the UK can grow investment and exports in Morocco and also support Moroccan suppliers looking at the UK market. Events like this from BritCham are really key to growing that interest. We hope to engage and support in other events in future, including a potential event in Agadir in May to look at fruits and vegetables. I'd like to turn now to Mr. Hamid Badi, who will give us a presentation that will run us through an overview of the industry and realities of doing business in Morocco, including the key food industries in Morocco. Mr. Badi, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chris. First of all, I would like to thank the British Chamber of Commerce for Morocco for organizing this webinar and for inviting the Ministry of Industry and Trade to take part in this event. This event constitutes a huge opportunity for our ministry to give you an overview about the potential and the potential opportunities of the Moroccan agribusiness sector. Next, please. So let's turn to the first part of my presentation. Next slide, please. So this is the first part of my presentation, which is about giving you an overview, as I said, about the agribusiness sector in Morocco. Let me say that the agribusiness sector is a driving sector in our economy. It's considered as a factor of the valorization and regulation of our agricultural and fisheries production. This sector holds an important place in the industrial sector within its contribution to the improvement of the trade balance, job creation, and also the food security of our kingdom. So in order to give you an idea about this contribution, I would like to share with you some figures related to the agribusiness sector in Morocco. This sector includes more than 2,100 companies which represents 24% of the total industrial companies. It employs more than 161,000 people, which represents almost 20% of the formal industrial jobs. It generates a turnover of 161 billion dirhams and an export value of more than 36 billion dirhams. As you can see, these figures illustrate clearly the importance and the potential of the Moroccan agribusiness sector in our industrial fabric. Next. In Morocco, the agribusiness sector is a highly diversified sector. We have different branches, which we can classify into 3 categories according to their outlets, if they target the domestic or the export markets, and their degree of integration with the national agricultural upstream. So the first category is what we call the basic sectors. This category includes the branches oriented mainly toward the domestic markets, such as dairy, sugar, fat, processing of cereals and meats. And more than 95% of the production of these sectors is directed to the domestic market. The second category is what we call sectors with a high export potential. So for this category, sectors are strongly linked to the agricultural upstream, and they are mainly consist of fruit and vegetables processing industries. 75% of the production of these industries is directed towards the foreign markets. And finally, the third category is what we call intermediate sectors. They use these sectors. They use these branches. They use raw materials that are mainly imported. For example, biscuits, chocolate, and the confectionery industry, beverages industry, manufacture and of culinary preparation, etc. These branches, they are vulnerable to competitiveness from imported products due to their support granted to the national upstream production. Next, please. So now we come to the next point of my presentation, which is related to the strengths and the challenges of the Moroccan agribusiness sector. We have 5 main strengths to consider here. The first strength is the strong potential of the agricultural and fisheries raw materials production. We have in Morocco raw material production, which are strengthened especially by the implementation of this sectoral development plans, like the Green Morocco Plan, Generation Plan, and also the Aliotis Plan. The second strength is the preferential access to a strong consumer market within the framework of the free trade agreements signed by Morocco. Our country offers to investors an access to a market of nearly 56 countries, representing more than 1 billion consumers in European Union, in the United States of America, and in Arab countries. And now, after the creation of the African continental free trade area, Morocco will have a tremendous opportunity to exploit in order to access to a market estimated to 1.2 billion consumers. The third strength is the existence of a qualified and highly skilled workers and competences. So this constitutes for Morocco a major asset in the service of competitiveness and the creation of high value added products. Also, the existence of a specialized agribusiness sites, what we call agropole, developed by the Moroccan authorities in some key regions in order to strengthen the development of agribusiness activities and to attract and host agribusiness investments. And to date, we have 4 agropoles that are operational, and they are located in Knes, Bni Mellal, Agadir, and Berkane. And finally, we have logistics, efficient logistics in Morocco. The logistics in Morocco has become more and more efficient, especially with the implementation of major infrastructures meeting the international standards, such as ports, large national highway, good coverage of international airports, reliable systems of telecommunications, etc. So these are the strengths of the agribusiness sector in Morocco. These strengths indicates that our agribusiness sector has the potential to play a key role in the economic development of our country, and also for the food security in the kingdom. But in order to do so, it needs to overcome the main 5 challenges encountered by and faced by this sector. The first challenge is that we should enhance and diversify local products, and at the same time to improve the quality of the production to face the international competitiveness, particularly within the framework of the FTAs mentioned earlier. The second challenge is how to enhance more and more the integration between the agricultural upstream and the industrial downstream in order to develop new products with a higher value added from transforming and processing the agricultural upstream production. The third challenge is the capability to keep pace with technological development, mainly related to improving efficiency, reducing costs, and raising productivity levels. The fourth challenge is the shifts, the evolution shifts and changes in the lifestyles and preferences of Moroccan consumers, especially new demands for quality. And nowadays, Moroccan consumers, they are more and more aware about their health and the health of their children. So that affects positively the agribusiness sector, and that opens up new market opportunities. And finally, the fifth challenge is how to encourage and promote exports and develop new high growth export markets. So in addition to these challenges, I think that the pandemic of COVID-19 has forced some companies to rethink their products, as well as speed up the use of some digital technologies. So to sum up, I believe that improving the quality of products and process, and the development of the new niche products, and the shift towards increased food processing is becoming increasingly important in order first to compete in the international markets, to compete facing the international competitiveness, to satisfy emerging customers' needs, and to capture a relatively high value segment of the global supply chain. Next. So okay, that's end the first part of my presentation, and now we come to the next part of my presentation, which is related to the program contracts of the developments of the Moroccan agribusiness sector. So in order to accelerate the development of this sector, Morocco, the government of Morocco has established a strong partnership between the governments represented by the Ministry of Industry and the Ministry of Agriculture and the private operators in order to provide the sector with a common and shared strategic vision. So this strategy resulted in signing in 2017 of a program contract of the development of the agribusiness sector, which covered the period of 2017-2021. Next. So the main objectives of this strategy is we have first enhanced the integration between the agricultural upstream and the industrial downstream, and I believe that today this integration between the two sectoral strategies allow to the country to increase its self-sufficiency to a high level, particularly in milk, meat, fruits, and vegetables, and also to develop new products with a higher value added from processing agricultural upstream production. Also, the main objective of this strategy is to boost and promote export in traditional markets and develop new high growth export markets, to stimulate private investment and direct it to promising products in international markets, to create job and stabilize and stabilize jobs, and to contribute to rural development, the development by securing and increasing farmers' income. Next slide. So this program contracts is related to 7 agribusiness industries, considered as the most important in the sectoral for the sectoral development, due to their prominence and potential. So these 7 industries, they are valorization of citrus and other fresh fruit and vegetables industry. We have processed fruit and vegetables industry, olive oil industry, dairy industry, meat industry, biscuits, chocolate and confectionery industry, and pasta and couscous industry. This strategy aims to increase the growth of the agribusiness sector through adopting a number of measures. The main measures of this strategy are, firstly, the investment incentives, which cover different projects, investment components, such as industrial building and equipment purchase. So these investment incentives, they are granted to the 7 key sectors, as I mentioned, and they vary between 10 to 40% of the investment amount, depending on the industry. And here I would like to emphasize that within the framework of the program contract, subsidies are granted by the government to the large companies. In Morocco, a large company is a company which generates a turnover exceeding 200 million dirhams. And they are granted through the Industrial Development Fund. And they are granted to the SMEs through the National Agency for the Promoting of the SMEs. And second measure of the program contracts is to grant a subsidy for the exportation in 2 industries: the biscuits, chocolate and confectionery industry, and pasta and couscous industry. Next, please. Here, I would like to inform you that the Moroccan government, in consultation with the private operators, has decided to sign an amendment of this program contract in order to extend its duration for 2 additional years. The main reason of this amendment are, first, maintain the investment dynamic currently experienced in the agribusiness sector in Morocco within the framework of the program contract, and secondly, to introduce other provisions for the adaptation and the improvement of certain measures of the program contracts. Next. In addition to these investment incentives provided by the government under the implementation of the program contract, the Moroccan government could sign specific agreements and contracts with investors who will make an investment equal to or more than 100 million dirhams or create at least 250 stable jobs. So within this agreement, investors could benefit from direct incentives, particularly for certain expenses like land purchase, infrastructure, and training. And they can benefit also from custom duty and value-added tax exemptions, for of course when the agreed criteria and conditions are met. Next. So now we come to the next point, which is related to the opportunities for Morocco and the UK. As we know, Morocco and the UK has signed an association agreement in 2019 in order to strengthen the economic relations between the 2 countries. The main goals of these agreements are, first, preserve and restore all the benefits of the 2 countries granted each other under the Morocco-UK European Union Association Agreement. Also, to continue bilateral trade without any obstacles after the Brexit, and also to consolidate and strengthen relations between Morocco and the UK, especially in terms of trade and investment. And I believe that these association agreements constitute a huge opportunity for both countries to exploit in order to develop their industry sectors and especially their agribusiness sector. Next. Now to sum up, let's move to the final part of my presentation, which can be dedicated to why we should invest in the Moroccan agribusiness sector. In Morocco, we have government incentives granted in order to support the development of the agribusiness sector. We have also a dynamic and diversified agricultural upstream, allowing a sufficient local sourcing. Also, we have a free trade agreement with 56 countries, and Morocco is the only African country having an FTA with the United States of America. And Morocco gives you the opportunity and the possibility to address the European Union and the American market, as well as the promising African markets. Also, we have a competitive labor costs and the skilled workforce specialized in agribusiness industry. Also, we have dedicated Agropole offering integrated key service for food processing companies. Also, we have modern infrastructure ensuring a good connectivity all across the country, and also an easy access to African agricultural raw materials. So based on all this, I believe that Morocco has the ingredients to be the ideal platform for the UK companies to source, to transform, and to export. Next slide. So thank you very much for listening. Here is my contact details if you want to get in touch or to follow up further. And I look forward to progress on this Morocco-UK agribusiness collaboration. Thank you.
Hamid, thank you. What an excellent presentation, which I think has really developed our understanding of the strength of the sector in Morocco, and in particular some of the strengths and opportunities within the sector, the diversity, the opportunities for integration. And I think, you know, at reinforcing the point Stephen made earlier, that we all know of sort of the strength of Moroccan export of fruit and vegetables, but there are so many more opportunities and so many more strengths in the sector and chances for the UK to be involved. I mean, I think, you know, particularly looking at FTA utilization, which as I mentioned, you know, we have a strong dialogue between our two governments, but also some of the other aspects there in terms of sort of technological advances and opportunities where the UK can look at some of the agri-tech and green and sustainable tech elements that we've been working on, and the chances for commercial involvement in Morocco. And I think incredibly useful as well to outline some of those incentives around program contracts and the investment charter offer. So thank you very much again. Hajar, we move on to you, if I may, and I hope that firstly I might ask you if you could outline for us how important is Morocco's agricultural potential in terms of land, infrastructure, and export capacity.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Hamid. Good morning, dear audience who's been with us during this webinar. I would like to thank you first for inviting the Agricultural Development Agency to take part of this webinar, which I hopefully will be very fruitful for all the audience who's with us today. So basically, as you know, the agricultural sector is really important in Morocco, as it has, let's say, a significant contribution to the national GDP. Actually, currently, this sector, the agricultural sector only contributes by 20% of the national GDP. It's a big source of employment in the rural areas in Morocco, as it employs 40% of the population in the rural areas. And it's a source of income for more than 75% of the households in the rural areas. Also, Morocco is very known for the quality of its fresh produce, whether talking for fruits or even the market vegetables. We have a huge currency contribution through the agricultural exports in Morocco, which has reached by 2020 more than 40 billions of dirhams, with an average volume of 1.4 million tons of fresh produce exported. Morocco also covers its own needs for the agricultural products. For example, we have a full capacity of covering our 100% of our national needs in terms of vegetables, in terms of meat, 60% ability to cover our national needs in terms of cereals, and 43% capacity of covering our national needs when talking about the sugar cane. Morocco has a quite important workable agricultural land. It's actually 8.7 million hectares, from which we have 1.6 million hectares that are irrigated using the drip irrigation systems, and this is the new vision of the ministry under the new strategy Génération Green. We have an important hydro-agricultural infrastructure as well. We do have more than 149 dams with a capacity of 19.1 billion cubic meters of water, from which we have 6.74 billions that are meant for agricultural use. For example, in 2020, 2021. We do have a very diversified agricultural production. Annually we can produce more than we have actually more than 1 million hectares which are meant for the production of olive trees, more than 260,000 hectares that are meant for the production of market vegetables, more than 126,000 hectares for the citrus fruits, and we have 28 million livestock currently in 2021, from which 66% are ovins. So basically, as my colleague Hamid said, we have huge investment opportunities in the agricultural sector, from which we have good infrastructure. Actually, we have planned 7 agropoles. So agropoles basically are what we call logistics platforms that are located in the main production areas with available farmlands for setting up valorization units, among other support services from the Department of Agriculture, like ONSA, Morocco Foodex, INRA, and so on. I will go back to these institutions later. So basically, we do have 4 agropoles that are at the marketing phase, that are ready for investors if they wish to acquire some lands in order to build their manufacturing units. We do have the agropole of Berkane, Meknes, Beni Mellal, and Agadir. And we do have 3 more agropoles in the implementation phase that are not still yet ready for investors. We do have the agropole of Larache in the north of Morocco. We do have the agropole of El Gharb that will be in Kenitra, and we do have the agropole of El Haus that's planned to be in the region of Marrakesh, Safi. And in addition to these agropoles, we do have some other industrial zones, like we do have the Tangier free zone, we do have the Atlantic free zone in El Gharb, in Kenitra, and all these industrial zones are ready to welcome investors, and they do have very good incentives in terms of the prices, whether for leasing or whether for acquisition, both for both nationals and non-nationals. So basically, we do have many institutions as well. For example, I will speak about the institutions under the Ministry of Agriculture. So we do have the ADA, which is our agency. So we're basically responsible for the promotion of agricultural investment, as well as managing partnerships with the private investors. We do have the National Board of Agricultural Advice, which is ONCA, who's responsible for giving agricultural advice to farmers, coaching them and giving them technical assistance. We have the Autonomous Institution for Exports, Control and Coordination of Agricultural Products, which has basically become the Morocco Foodex. And it takes also in charge the control of the technical control and coordination of all agricultural exports. We do have on the national level the National Office for the Health Safety of Food Products, which is ONSA. This office is basically responsible for monitoring the health, security and safety of food products and applying the veterinary and phytosanitary regulation in Morocco. And we do have a National Institute for Agricultural Research, basically looking for undertaking research programs on agricultural development, maybe new types and varieties of crops and produces. Also, we do have a good trained human force or labor, because in Morocco we do have actually 3 agricultural higher education institutions under the Ministry of Agriculture, with the training capacity for more than 2,700 students per year, in addition to 53 technical institutions that have trained so far more than 50,000 graduates. So basically, in addition to that, I think Mr. Hamid has already spoken about easiness to access to international markets from Morocco. We do have many free trade agreements that were signed with many countries, but the most famous one is the Morocco and the European Union agricultural agreements, and the Moroccan and US FTA, the free trade agreements. We do have other free trade agreements with Arabic countries, with Turkey, and we do have the Agadir agreement as well. So basically, the opportunities are really huge. The infrastructure is there. We know that there is a new maritime line that will be that will connect the port of Tangier with the port of Pool. So you know the opportunities are huge. Morocco is a pretty welcoming country in terms of investments. They give the same incentives to both nationals and non-nationals. There is no difference in between them. There are other opportunities from which the investors can benefit. For example, in terms of accessing lands, we do have what we call the public-private partnership program, which is basically renting the public farmlands. These are state-owned farmlands. So basically, through this partnership, investors can get a long-term lease, but not an acquisition. To set it clear, these lands are not for acquisition, but rather for a long-term lease. It can go up to 40 years. So basically, these lands can be accessed through what we call calls for tenders that we launch directly through the website of the ADA, and all sorts of investors are welcome to participate and submit their bids. Actually, there is no financial bid because the value of the lease is already fixed by the government, but it's rather a technical bid for how to valorize these farms. So basically, for example, if the investors wish to go through any projects linked to fruit trees, they can get 40 years. They can renew it starting the 25 first years. If they wish to go for breeding projects, they can get from 25 years to 40 years, depending on the project itself. For example, if they want to opt only for the breeding part, they can get 25 years. But if they go for the valorization part, which is the agro-industrial part, they will get up to 40 years for breeding projects. And for the other types of fresh produce, like the market vegetables, they can get 17 years under the lease contracts. And this agreement is signed between the investors as companies. They should create Moroccan companies after they are awarded the lands, and sign the agreement with the Ministry of Agriculture, along with the Ministry of Economy and Finance, because they are the owners of these lands. So as I repeat, it's a long-term lease. It's not an acquisition, not yet an acquisition. But then for the private farmlands, they can be sold to investors as companies, as Moroccan companies. But then for the state-owned farmlands, they're not for acquisition. They're only for a long-term lease, as I repeat. There is also a second opportunity, actually, which is very important, and which is actually nowadays the trend in agriculture, which is the agricultural aggregation. So basically, the agricultural aggregation is the new innovative model that was launched in the Green Morocco Plan, and it is in continuity in the Green Generation Plan. It's a model for organizing small local farmers around a private actor who has any sort of valorization unit. It can be a manufacturing unit, it can be a slaughterhouse, it can be a processing unit, a warehouse. Any sort of valorization unit from which we can conduct an aggregation project is fine. So basically, the principle is pretty simple. We have the aggregator who owns the unit, and we have the small local farmers who have their own lands. For example, an aggregator can work with more than 20 small local farmers. Each small local farmer, for example, has 5 hectares, so he can aggregate all of them and buy from them the raw material, the produce, the fresh produce. For example, if the aggregator is producing olive oil, you will have an aggregation contract with all these small local farmers, and he will buy from them the produce at the end of the agricultural campaign with agreed prices and so on. So we do have a whole regulation for this framework, which is the law 04.12. That regulates all types of transactions between the aggregator and the aggregees, which are the small local farmers. So basically, at the end of this framework, the aggregator is committed to advise the aggregees to acquire their production under the terms of the aggregation contracts. And on their part, the aggregees will be committed to respect all the technical requirements that are recommended by the aggregator. For example, if we have an aggregation project for olive oil, all the small local farmers should produce the same quality of olives, the same caliber. They should have the same, go under the same quality of, for example, acidity of the olive itself, because all of the production will be grouped and processed under the same processing unit, and then it will be marketed as this under the same brand. So this is very important to consider. I mean, technical mentoring and technical coaching to these small local farmers is key in order to have a successful aggregation project. Also, there is a third opportunity. It's not really an opportunity, but it's somehow a way to make joint ventures for partners who already who are already leasing the state-owned farmlands, they can open their capital after if they wish to a new investor who does not want to undergo the whole process of the tender application. So basically, they can open up their capital for up to 66% if they didn't finish their business plan. If the business plan is already achieved, they can open the full capital to 100% capital of the company managing the state-owned farmland. So basically, we're talking here about the company and not about the land, because the land is always under a long-term lease. It's rather the company that was created to manage this farm who can undergo new joint ventures, whether with nationals or non-nationals. So yeah, basically these are the main opportunities that are available if we're talking about the agriculture precisely.
Najara, thank you so much. I think an excellent overview of again, the sort of potential of the Morocco agriculture sector, and touching on a number of the sort of offers there in terms of long-term leases, agricultural aggregation, and capital offers. I'd like to pose another question to you, if I may, which is I'd like to get your views on why you feel the UK is a good destination for Morocco food products.
Well, actually, UK is actually a good destination for the Moroccan products because, you know, after the Brexit, we can seek the opportunity. In Morocco, we are actually opportunity seekers in terms of trade transactions. Actually, as you might know, for example, with the trade agreements that Morocco has with the European Union, for example, we do have quotas, or what we call contingents, on some sorts of agricultural producers. For example, I might list, we do have, I think, quotas on cucumbers, tomatoes, citrus fruits, zucchinis, garlic, strawberries, apricots, oranges, grapes, apricots, peaches, you name it. We have basically quotas for all these kinds of producers, and we do also have to respect specific calendars for exportation. For example, if for example, we have specific quotas and quotations from the first period of June to October, then from November to March, and this is quite limiting for the Moroccan production, as we do produce pretty much, we do cover the needs of the national market, and we are left with huge quantities of fresh produce, whether we are talking about citrus fruits, olive oil. No, we have a massive production of bananas, actually. So that recently farmers stopped producing bananas because we do have a massive production of bananas that needs to be exported. It's pretty good quality bananas, pretty good quality avocados. We have pretty good quality of tomatoes, both the normal tomatoes and the industrial tomatoes that can go for the production of passata, sauces, tomato concentrates. So basically, the opportunity is huge. And for example, as my colleague Hamid said, under the program contract for the development of agro-industrial sector, ADA, for example, was assigned the specific agreement for developing the exports of the olive oil, the packaged olive oil, not the bulk one. And basically, we started working in this under this contract program with friends. Organized several business trips to the profit of the Moroccan investors. We did as well this with the United States of America. We did organize many business trips in order to promote the exports of the packaged olive oil. And the new plan now is to conquer the UK market. We already started with the consulting firm. We launched a market study to assess the UK potential for importing the Moroccan packed olive oil. Not the bulk one, the packed olive oil, and we're currently under the study actually is under work. We're waiting to see what results could result from this study, and basically afterwards we're planning to conduct a few business trips to the UK. To the profit of the Moroccan producers of olive oil, and hopefully organize some B2B sessions with the UK importers, and we rely on your help to collaborate with us on this to make this mission successful. We're planning to do this by the end of this year or by the beginning of 2023. So as I said, the opportunities are huge. Morocco is very known with the quality of its fresh produce. It can't be compared to the quality of some other countries like Egypt, Jordani, and India. We do have some nice calibers in terms of citrus fruits, avocados, tomatoes, and the berry fruits as well. And as you know, we are an extra supplier for the European Union for many products, for tomatoes, for canned olives, for olive oil, and for the citrus fruits. So yeah, the opportunities are huge. And basically, we can also see it from the other way. Morocco also is a good destination for English investors to come and invest in Morocco as well. We do have many incentives. I'll talk about this later. The labor cost is pretty cheap in Morocco, and we do have a very good know-how on the best practices in terms of agricultural activities.
Thank you, Hajar. I think really excellent and exciting to hear about the olive oil opportunity, and looking forward to working together on that.
Yeah.
And I think really useful to draw attention to those quotas in the free trade agreement as well. And I think that is something that was rolled over as the UK as we signed the new agreement between the UK and Morocco based on the EU agreement. And I think absolutely something we're continuing to focus on in terms of utilising the breadth of those TRQs that exist. As you rightly said, there are tariff rate quotas across a wide range of products, and I think we're really looking forward to continuing that conversation. A final question for you, if I may, which is, I wonder if you could outline what Morocco offers to investors in agriculture. And I know you've talked about a number of programs around long-term land leases, but are there other elements that you'd draw attention to?
Yes, of course. For agro-industry, we have the Industrial Development Fund under the Ministry of Industry, as Mr. Hamid just spoke. But for agricultural investments, we do have the Agricultural Development Fund. That basically it's a fund created by the Ministry of Agriculture. These are subsidies, are not loans or anything. These are grants or financial aids from the Moroccan government to all investors investing in Morocco, whether they are nationals or non-nationals. So basically the subsidy covers a wide range of activities linked to the agriculture. We have subsidies for irrigation systems, for land development, for the farm's equipments, machines, building, for example, the livestock facilities, the breeding equipments, anything that has to do the installation, for example, of the greenhouses. We do have many subsidies for that as well. We have subsidies for breeding projects. If anyone wants to import any specific types of selected breeds, they can get subsidies on that as well. We have subsidies in order to get the certified seeds, the plants for all the types of fruit. I think only the bananas that are not subsidized in Morocco. That's it. And we do have also some subsidies for the agro-industrial part as well, for building valorization units, for example, olive oil extracting units, warehouses, slaughterhouses, milk units, cheese units. Any sort of processing units, they can get subsidies on that as well. The only thing I need to point out is if any investor benefited from this category in particular, which is the valorization units under the Agricultural Development Fund, it cannot benefit under the Industrial Development Fund, because we have some intersecular committees between us. So in order to make the subsidies available to all investors and to avoid the fraud, because some investors will tend to benefit from the same category under the FDA and the FDI. So if the only thing, for example, the investor can do is to compare, depending on his own case, between the FDI and the FDA, and see which fund in his own case is more beneficial for his own project. But again, for the agro-industrial activity, I think the FDI is more beneficial. The Industrial Development Fund. We do have subsidies also for exportations, for exports, for promoting exports on some selected products like tomatoes, olive oils, aromatic plants, some sorts of fruits, and the subsidies depends on the destinations to which the produce is exported. And we do have, in addition to these universal subsidies, we do have some additional subsidies for people who are under the framework of the aggregation, the agricultural aggregation. So in order to encourage people to adopt this new framework. So in addition to the normal subsidies, they have their own additional subsidies as well under the Agricultural Development Fund. We do have as well, for example, for the Moroccan taxation, it's quite interesting for investors. For example, for farmers who are making, for example, a turnover of less than 5 million dirhams per annum, they have a permanent exemption from the tax. And for the others, they have a reduced tax rate for agricultural sectors. For example, they have a reduced if I can still recall, the income tax is reduced by 20%, and the corporate tax is reduced by 17.5%, if I still recall. And for all the equipment that is used solely for the agricultural activity, they have a permanent exemption from the value-added tax. For example, if they want to buy fertilizers, phytosanitary products, agricultural equipment, irrigation equipment, solar pumps as well, they have an exemption from the VAT. So this is as well a good incentive for investors, and always for both nationals and non-nationals. We have many laws that regulates the agricultural sector. We have the law on agricultural aggregation, which is law 0412. We do have the law on organic production of agricultural products, which is the law 39.12. We do have the law that regulates all the interprofessional organizations, which are basically the federations we are working with. It's the law 0312, and we do as well have the law of distinctive signs of origin and quality, and basically this law is made for regulating the agricultural label, the geographical indication, and the designation of origin. So basically, we have many laws that regulates the agricultural sector. And also, we do have a very good insurance system when it comes to agriculture, because with all this drought, excess water, gel, high winds, sometimes with the lack of rains as well, insurance is pretty important to consider. So we do have many types of insurance systems with subsidies of the Moroccan states that can vary between I think 57% to 90%, depending on the chosen subscription formula. This is to be seen with the insurance institutions. So yeah, we do have many opportunities, many incentives. As I said, the Moroccan taxation is quite interesting for the agricultural sector. So all of these are available to investors if they wish to benefit from them.
Thank you very much, Hajar. And I think on that last question, again, for the breadth of opportunities there, I hope a number of UK businesses on the line may have heard a few things that spark some interest, and will encourage them that there is opportunities, but also support looking into Morocco. And thank you for your answers across all three of those questions. I think all a really fascinating insight into the strengths of the sector and some of the specifics there on what's on offer. In our time remaining, I'd like to turn to a few questions we've received from the audience. Thank you again both for your excellent presentations. We've had a number of questions in from the audience, which I hope we'll have a chance to rattle through as many as possible. One of the first and an interesting one on sort of regional approaches within Morocco, and perhaps Hamid, I could turn to you for your views first on this one, which is a question on what's the best area to be based in Morocco if aiming to export to the UK?
Well, thank you for the question, Mr. Chris. As my colleague Hajar said, in Morocco we have a huge potential and potential of production in different products under the implementation of the Green Generation Plan and the Green Morocco Green Plan and the Green Generation Plan, and also the RUT's plan. We have the agriculture and the agri-industry fields that they cover all the kingdom. But we have some products like oranges, which are located in some region, like in Souss Massa, in Agadir, in Berkane, in other region, and under the implementation of the program contract, we try to cover all the kingdom, all the territory, because we offer the investment incentives in order to build and to locate facilities, agribusiness facilities in different region. with the same subsidy and with the same percentage of the subsidy. For example, I will give you an example. For the dairy industry, under the framework of the contract program, the program contracts, the government provide a subsidy up to 30% of the investment amount, capped to 15 million dirhams for a project, for an investment who will be located in different regions, in the 12 regions of the kingdom. Okay, so the incentives and all the measures that we have in the program contract, they cover all the products, all the projects, even if they are the first condition that they should meet is that they need to be in the 7K sectors, as I mentioned in my presentation. And I think that if you want to export to the UK, you have first, you must locate or build your facility here in Morocco. We have the potential. We have the production, the agricultural upstream production, and after that you build your facility, you can export under any region that you are located in.
Thank you, Hamid. Perhaps a general question that I can put to you both from another member of the audience, which is around whether either of you have identified specific UK capabilities in the agribusiness sector that would be a sort of particular interest for Morocco in terms of investment or import that would help sort of drive some of the Morocco sector development around sort of commerce. Hajar, perhaps I could come to you for thoughts first on that.
Maybe well, we do have, for example, I will talk about agriculture. We do have, for example, some types of produce, as I said, in which we have a flow and a massive production. So this gives basically a huge opportunity for the UK investors, for example, in building juice manufacturers, for example, in Morocco. This is a huge opportunity for them. They can do this either at the level of the agropoles, but if I would say the most, for example, appropriate, maybe they can have the transformation unit, for example, at the level of the agropole of Berkane, and then maybe have a warehouse unit at the level of the Tangier free zone, because it's basically the nearest free zone possible. I mean, starting from the port of Tangier. There are many opportunities, actually. There are opportunities for industrial tomatoes, for making, for example, concentrated tomatoes, passatas, any kinds of sauces. Juicing industry now is the trend. There is huge opportunities for that. Maybe all sorts of processed meats as well, like the charcuterie and stuff. For milk, we have a quite very good infrastructure for that, and we do cover 100% the needs of the national market. So basically, if an investor wishes to invest in this industry in particular, it might be, for example, for exports. The trend also is toward the what we call the soy milk, the almond milk sector as well. Because now is the non-gluten sources of milk as well. There is huge opportunities for that. If we have any investors who are interested and who have the expertise on this specific industries, carob as well. Carob now is a pretty growing industry in Morocco. We use it. We use the carob powder in all sorts of pastry in the pastry industry as well. We have many huge opportunities. We do have some companies recently who are making the apple cider vinegar as well. They are also exporting it to many Gulf countries, to the US as well. There are, I mean, huge opportunities, you name it. Actually, it depends on the investor himself, what's the expertise he has, and how he can, for example, match it with the Moroccan needs for exports.
Thank you, Hajar. Hamid, perhaps I could put the same question to you in terms of whether there are certain UK capabilities you're looking at.
Under the association agreement signed by Morocco and the United Kingdom, this agreement opens a huge opportunity for the two countries in many sectors, and especially in the agribusiness sector. In many sectors, industrial sectors like in textiles, in aeronautics, and other sectors, but especially in the agribusiness sectors, because Morocco has a strong potential in these sectors. And I believe that the UK companies should exploit this opportunity in order to reach the objectives of this partnership. And today, Morocco is actively encouraging and facilitating foreign investments, particularly in export sectors like agribusiness sector, through trade liberalization, sectoral strategies, investment incentives, infrastructure improvements, in order to transform the country into a regional business hub. And I think that recently Morocco has launched Morocco's investment brand, which we call Morocco Now. They launched this brand in London in a bid to attract British investment to Morocco. So this constitutes, in my opinion, an opportunity for the UK companies to exploit. And as I mentioned earlier, Morocco has all the ingredients to attract more and more UK companies to invest in Morocco and to seize the opportunities offered by the country.
Maybe I would add also the potato chips or crisps, as you call them. There is a huge opportunity for that as well, because we produce potatoes 3 times per year. The cycle is pretty quick, and we do produce the industrial potatoes. For example, Lay's, they are planning to come, and they were actually prospecting the market and to see in which areas in Morocco, for example, they can have their manufacturing units. So this is also a quite important sector that you can work on.
And I think that production is earlier comparison to other countries.
Yes, yeah. For the vegetable, for the market veggies in Morocco, we have a very reduced cycle with a good quality. Especially tomatoes, potatoes, cucumbers, and all, these traditional Moroccan veggies that are used by the nation, we can secure them.
Thank you both. One of the next questions from the audience is around sort of freight and transport logistics. And I wonder if I could get your views on sort of, you've mentioned a lot around the infrastructure that's already in place in Morocco, but I wonder if you could maybe expand upon what the best freight solutions and sort of transport solutions are for exports from Morocco, perhaps from Tangier specifically, to the UK?
I think that logistics is a good, I will say it's a good objective in Morocco. We have modern infrastructures which can ensure a good connectivity all across the country, so that the products can be located from a place to another easily. And I think that Morocco, under the association agreement signed between Morocco and the UK and the United Kingdom, recently Morocco has launched a route between Tangier and the coast of the kingdom, I think in Pool or Poli, in order to facilitate the shipments of all the goods and products, and to limit the period of the shipments. So that's the logistics is an ingredient and a factor to attract foreign investment, especially UK companies, to invest in Morocco and to seize all these opportunities.
Thanks, Hamid. And I think beg your pardon, Hajar.
If I can add, actually, I will talk only about the agricultural products, the raw agricultural products. Basically, the most used way in Morocco is the maritime lines. It can go starting from Jorf port or the Tangier port or the Casablanca port as well. We do have many freight companies who are working in Morocco. They are these are multinational companies like San Jose Luis. We have many other companies, and basically many freight companies, they have this what we call the Panamax, the Panamax ships. So they can easily in one route transport, for example, more than 60,000 tons of fresh produce. So basically for agricultural products, if we compare the cost, the timings, the maritime lines are the most used mean of logistics in Morocco for the time being.
Thank you, Hajar, and apologies for interrupting you. I think excellent point. And I think you both mentioned maritime and Hamid specifically the potential of a new line between Tangier Port and Pool in the UK, and the potential that has to be really quite transformative in terms of transport times between the two kingdoms, sort of from 4, 5, 6 days to potentially as low as 2 to 3. So again, sort of real opportunities through that link in the sector. I think we have perhaps time for one more question, and the last one that I'd appreciate getting your views on is around sort of globally. We're seeing a lot of economic impacts and sort of inflation as a general trend currently. What impact do you think there may be on Moroccan exports on inflation, particularly around sort of food, commercial and industrial products?
Well, actually, if we're talking about exports and not about the national markets, I would say it doesn't affect too much, because I'm gonna talk about the big exporters in Morocco, for example. For example, the agricultural production, as I said, a part of it is for the national needs, and another part of it is meant for exports. So basically, exporters they have already signed contracts to which they should commit to. So basically, it doesn't impact neither the prices, neither the quantities of the produce that will be exported. And regarding the inflation of the agricultural produce in Morocco, I think the trend is worldwide. Everything nowadays is going pretty actually. Nothing is becoming really cheap nowadays, even with the gasoline prices, the petroleum prices. The trend is everywhere, especially with what's happening now with Ukraine. But luckily in Morocco, we don't rely pretty much on the cereals coming from Ukraine. Most of our imports are coming from Canada and Brazil, and we do I think import 34% of our needs from Ukraine, but that's becoming really marginal. We can cover the needs from other countries as well. There is no real major problem with that. But as for exporters, they're not really impacted because, as I said, they have pretty established contracts and agreements with their clients abroad. So they don't really. The only problem is that they have to secure the same quantities of production for the clients abroad. That's the only, and it can be related to them to the exporter himself. I mean, if he can secure the production or not. But as for the prices, it doesn't affect too much.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what it said, but by my colleague Haja. Moroccan companies, in order to source, they have sourcing contracts with the producers. So they use all the sourcing products under these contracts. So there is any impacts of the inflation of their prices. And under these contracts, they source different products, different raw materials. And I think that this will not affect the price, and hopefully that it will not affect it. And I think that the abundance of the raw materials and the agricultural upstream production is here, and the inflation will not affect, as I said, the Moroccan companies.
Even I would add, for example, for tomatoes, who were going pretty expensive recently, after Ramadan they will go back to more than normal, because we will have the second campaign of tomatoes, especially the tomatoes of the region of Souss Massa. There will be a flow massification production. It should be ready by the end of the month of May and the beginning of the month of June. So basically the prices will go back to normal. It's usually, this trend is usually related to Ramadan, because there is an overproduction, an overconsumption actually of this. Yeah, it's always an over demand for these kinds of products. But after Ramadan, the prices will go just back to normal in the normal markets. Not talking about the supermarkets and stuff, because the prices are slightly different.
Thank you both. I want to sort of allow you a minute or two each, if you have any sort of concluding thoughts. I mean, you know, really excellent presentations from you both. Thank you again, and I think really interesting questions from the audience. But I don't know if in the last couple of minutes, in a minute or so, you'd like to sort of summarize or offer any concluding thoughts on sort of, you know, really where there's chances to be growing this relationship, the real opportunities and the strengths of the Moroccan market in terms of drawing UK commercial opportunities. Perhaps, Hamid, if you have any concluding thoughts, and Hajar to follow.
My concluding thoughts is that we, as I said, we have all the ingredients to attract UK companies to invest here in Morocco. based on these ingredients, I think that Morocco could play a regional role in order to develop all the country, the African country, and Morocco can be an ideal platform, as I said, for the UK companies in order to source, to transform, to process, and also to export.
Yeah. Morocco actually is now becoming the gate of Africa, actually. It's the gate of Africa for Europeans and for the sub-Saharan countries, with now all these ports and also the project of the ports of Dakhla, whether we're talking about agricultural produce, about fisheries as well. There is huge opportunities. As I said, we do have many subsidies. Each ministry in Morocco has its own subsidies and have, you know, a very large, wide range of opportunities that can be available for investors. So basically, I should say they should profit from all these incentives. As I said, we do have the same opportunities for both the nationals and the non-nationals. We don't have any you know, differentiation approach or so. The labor is pretty well trained in Morocco. The labor force is pretty well trained. The costs are very cheap in comparison, for example, with the UK. So all of this is as Mr. Hamid said, is a good formula for a successful for building a successful agricultural projects. The key is to have the best practices, to conduct the project in the best way, and in general, agricultural projects in Morocco are very profitable. They're really profitable. You drain some investment in the beginning. It's pretty it's quite a good investment amount, but after that you generate very good profits afterwards. So yeah, welcome to Morocco.
And Mr. Chris, you can share with the audience our contact details if they want to keep in touch.
Yes, you can share with them our contact details. We are here for them. If they have any other questions, you can give them, for example, my phone number. They can reach me through email, through phone. There is no problem for that.
Yeah.
Thank you both very much. I think, you know, it's been a fantastic conversation today, a chance to really understand what's going on in the agribusiness sector currently in Morocco, the real strengths that are there, sort of a huge number of advantages that are already there in terms of infrastructure, in terms of know-how, in terms of logistics, in terms of the breadth of the sector and what can be done. I think, you know, we've all talked about the fact that there's a free trade agreement in place and there's a framework for growing that commercial relationship and a conversation between our governments. And I think all signs point to nothing but opportunities and a chance to grow. So I think my sort of final thought is, you know, please continue to speak to us as businesses. Please talk to us about those opportunities. Please bring questions, certainly to us in DIT. I hope I can offer for our panelists as well to continue to take questions, and of course to the British Chamber who are supporting all of this. You know, thank you. Let's find ways to make this work and grow this sector between the two kingdoms. Can I say a huge thank you to our audience today who've joined us for the webinar, and an enormous thank you again to my panelists, Mr. Hamid Badi and Mrs. Hajar Shmati-Houari. Excellent conversation today. And finally, a huge thank you again to the British Chamber of Commerce and all of the partners for hosting the webinar today. And for inviting us to speak on the panel. It's been a real pleasure, certainly enjoyed it, and looking forward to future conversations. Ramadan Mubarak to all, and I hope to speak to you all soon.
Thank you, Mr. Chris.
Thank you so much.
Ramadan Mubarak.
And we hope to see you soon in Morocco, dear investors.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good day.